Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, Greg Anthony here, and glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this February 22nd, 2017 day on our calendar. My guest today is Debra Ondrisek of the Alamo Ministry, and Debra comes on, and I'm really happy she's here today because we got a lot to talk about. For those of you who've listened to my show, you know that for years now I've been trying to alert you regarding the treatment of the Alamo Ministry, a ministry that Debra's been a part of for over 40 years, and the persecution of this ministry throughout, going back 40 years, leading up to the arrest and a terrible conviction, a phony conviction. Tony Alamo, the minister, the pastor of this Christian ministry, was framed, and I presented that case to you over the years, and if you want to read more about it, go to freetonyalamo.com, a website I started, and you can read what we're doing there. As far as a petition you can also sign, and there's been hundreds of people that have given put their name on this petition to release Tony, as well as giving many great comments about him throughout the course of the last 40 years. Many people that have known him for years can't believe what's happened. And when you look at the trial, it was just a travesty of justice. And I thought during the period with Donald Trump supporting Christianity and this whole America First, Make America Great Again, in a sense, shoving it in the face of the globalists, I thought that would be the best time now to see if we could get Tony released on a commutation, basically, to commute his sentence. He's been in jail for 10 years. He's 82 years old and in poor health. And hopefully we'll get to that. But just to give you a little bit of an update, the pardon attorney for Obama left, and the deputy attorney for Obama is standing in right now, which means that Trump has not put in place his pardon attorney, which in Tony's case would be best if we wait for that, and because under Obama and Clinton there is no chance, because basically Debra will tell you that Clinton was instrumental in framing Tony and trying to destroy the church, which was one of the churches was in Arkansas. We'll get into that as we move on with Debra. But first I wanted to say this. Something happened over the weekend. Many people on my show don't listen to mainstream. And I thought since Debra's on, we could play this. But Melania Trump did something I haven't seen in American politics in years. You know, the left and the Democratic Party has morphed into basically a progressive party that has nothing to do with what even John F. Kennedy's Democratic Party has. There's no semblance to it now. It shifted even into, I consider, it's so close to socialism and communism that it's unreal, and their views are completely leftist. And if we look at the Jesuit hand here, we're seeing now a complete Hegelian dialectic. Trump, the populist, nationalist, versus the Democratic Party, which are the globalists. And what Melania Trump did on Trump's campaign rally speech in Melbourne, Florida on Saturday was striking. And I thought I'd play that. It'll only take a minute. And then I'll give you a couple comments on what the left said about it. And then we'll get to Debra and get her comments on this whole Trump phenomena and other things regarding Christianity, how the Bible plays into this, and many things that Debra would like to talk about today. But let me play this by Melania Trump, and she was introducing President Trump at a rally Saturday, and this is how she started it. I think you'll find it interesting. Here we go.
Thank you.
who art in heaven, hallowed by thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Good afternoon. It is my honor and great pleasure to stand here before you as the First Lady of the United States. The America we envision is one that works for all Americans, and where all Americans can work and succeed. A nation committed to a greater civility and unity between people from all sides of the political divide. I will always stay true to myself and be truthful to you, no matter what the opposition is saying about me. I will act in the best interest of all of you. I'm committed to creating and supporting initiatives dear to my heart, which will have impact on women and children all around the world. My husband is creating a country of great safety and prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce the President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Okay, so there we have it. And before I get to Debra, let me just say this. I haven't heard a president in years have his speech opened with a prayer. And so I think that's a message to Christians all in our country that they have been left behind by the left. Now, what was the Democratic left's view of this, and what did the media report? And before I get to Debra, let me just say this. It shocked them, and they came out so strongly against him, and leftists in the social media tore into the First Lady, Melania, mocking her accent and religion, and branding her everything from a hostage to a whore, all for the secular offense of reciting the Lord's Prayer. Now, she began it, like I said, you heard it, Saturday in Florida, by delivering this prayer. And basically, to me, it was very refreshing. What was your thought of that, Debra, when you just heard that? What was going through your mind when she was reciting that at a political rally? Go ahead. Are you there? Debra. Okay, I've got Debra back. I lost her there for a couple seconds. And Debra, you heard what Melania said at the rally, reciting the Our Father, as well as this response from the left. I mean, she was really hit hard on social media, on NBC, ABC, for reciting the Lord's Prayer. She was called everything from a hostage to a whore. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my goodness, what is wrong with saying the Lord's Prayer at a political rally? I think, great, that's wonderful. 3 cheers for her, you know? And so, of course, what do you expect the political left to do but to call her every name, to anything that's good or pointing to the Lord in any way? Of course they're going to attack it because it's not part of their agenda to not attack something that's godly.
Right. I know you had some things, we talk a lot about Pope Francis and his role in the New World Order and what he's all about, and basically how he supports open borders, how he's allowing this immigration to really destroy countries in Europe. I don't know if you followed a number of things going on in Sweden now, and Italy, and all the things of allowing all these people coming in to really basically change Western civilization. And I know you had some information on something that he said about the RFID chips, about the mark of the beast. I thought you'd let us know about what you found out.
Oh, okay. Well, I found this article from a blog, and it was actually, I believe the first time it was posted was in May of 2014. And the title is Pope Francis Gives Support to RFID Chip Implementation. In a controversial move by the Catholic Church, Pope Francis has come out in vocal support of RFID chip technologies and the extraordinary potential they hold for mankind. During the Pontiff's weekly general address, he spoke to the crowd about his view on the RFID technology and assured his many followers that no spiritual harm can come from receiving an RFID implant. Now, here's a quote that they attribute to Pope Francis, and I will repeat this. I'm saying it's attributed to him. I can't really say what speech it was taken from other than this little blog that I have here. And I'm quoting this now. It says, "We have examined the scriptures thoroughly, and I can conclusively say that there's nothing to indicate that RFID chips are satanic in any way. If anything, these devices are a blessing from God himself, bestowed upon humanity to solve many of the world's ills," unquote.
Wow.
He went, yeah.
What's your thoughts about what the Bible really says?
Well, my thoughts about what the Bible really says are that I have to turn back to the Bible, of course, and I have some scriptures here. This is from Revelation chapter 13 in the King James Version Bible, and it says, "I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceives them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, except he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
Wow. So what you're saying, the Pope had it wrong, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just the opposite, basically, right?
Yes, the Lord absolutely forbids it. As a matter of fact, there's a couple more verses in chapter 14 where it says, "And the angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascends up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receives the mark of his name."
Wow. And you know, when you were reading that, it made me realize some things. Anytime I used to talk a lot to Tony before he was put in prison, and the one thing I always would get from Tony was that he wasn't afraid to look at the world affairs and talk about them in a very plain way so people can understand this hidden hand of the Jesuits and the Vatican, and then always look to the Bible for for guidance. And that's basically what your ministry is all about. So since Tony is in prison right now, I want to get to this Trump phenomena and what you really think about it. And let me just preface it by saying I did a show 2 days ago, so people, you can go to my website at arcticbeacon.com and you can get that show, because I did a little bit of an analysis of what's going on between Trump and the Vatican, as well as the Hegelian dialectic, and is there a hidden hand behind Donald Trump? So with that in mind, let me just preface this. We have the Pope, of course, who's a liberal, who's basically moving this progressive agenda on climate change and the RFID chips, immigration open to no borders, and this basically New World Order globalist view. Then we have Trump on the other side, who's basically not really in line with what the Pope is talking about, and is basically a nationalist populist supporting Christianity. And we just heard, something unheard of in American politics since the left has taken over, the prayer said before a political rally. So we have Trump the populist, then we have the Democrats now who have turned into globalists, basically. But where does Trump lie with the Vatican? Well, interestingly enough, if you go back to a couple of my shows, Debra, you'll see that there's a schism in Rome right now that's really erupting that we don't cover here. The mainstream media keeps it away from America and Christians here. Lumping Christianity together, Catholicism, ecumenical Protestant apostate ministers, lumping them together with true Bible-believing Christians like yourself and many others in this country who basically understand what I just said. But where does Trump fall in? Well, interestingly enough, just recently in Rome, Cardinal Burke from the United States led a movement where they plastered Rome with all of these posters. And basically he wants to oust Pope Francis in favor of traditional Catholicism, getting away from the statements that the Pope is making regarding we accept atheists, abortion, the whole thing. And guess who is behind that here? Well, recently, Steve Bannon, who is one of Trump's biggest advisors in the White House, met with Cardinal Burke in Rome. So Trump is taking this traditional view. You're seeing the Hegelian dialectic work out now in Rome, Francis against Burke. You're seeing it here, Trump against the left. And I wonder what your thoughts are biblically regarding what's happening before our very eyes. Go ahead.
Well, the way I look at things is that if there were no God and if there were no Bible, then there really wouldn't even, none of this would exist, because God is the one who created all of these people that are on either the side of God or on the side of Satan. And you cannot get away from the spiritual, because there's a spiritual war that's going on here. And the ultimate goal of Satan is, of course, to be worshipped by all people. And according to the Bible, according to the book of Revelation, that's what he is trying to do, is to make himself, Satan's going to enter a human being and say that he's God. And he wants to sit down in the heart, the temple, the heart of all the true born-again Christians, and he wants them to say that he's God also. He wants all people to say that he is God and to worship him. And that's what it really is ultimately all about. Even when Jesus, our Lord, was enduring temptation in the wilderness for 40 days, Satan tempted him with one of the major temptations that is mentioned is that he wanted him to fall down and worship himself, Satan, and then all would be his. He would give him all the kingdoms of the world if he would do that. And basically that's what Satan does with every human being, is he tempts them all to fall down and worship him. And if it's a celebrity, maybe he'll tempt them with money. If it's a politician, he'll tempt them with, fame, money, the things that he usually tempts people with in that caliber. And when they give in to him, then when they sell out to him, then he can use them to be like a Pied Piper to pull more and more people. And basically, that's what I see this whole thing playing out as. It's all, it's all in the Bible there. You look in the book of Daniel, you look in the book of Revelation, and the other books in the Bible, in the Gospels, and in the Lord talking about in the chapter 24 of Matthew, and Luke chapter 21 about the end times and the things that would happen and come to pass, and how the Lord warned not to listen to any of these false prophets, but to be aware, to be wary of them, and to steer clear. There's going to be so many lies and deception. The Bible says that the whole world is going to be deceived, and that's where it is right now, because the world has been given by Satan. They use this mouth called the media to spew out the propaganda and the lies, and to direct everybody into the way that they are directing everything to go right now, whether it be medicine or the banking or whatever, the wars, whatever. Everything is under the control, or being brought under the control of this globalist one world government.
I was thinking about just what you were talking about yesterday, and reflecting on the show I did regarding Trump and the new Trump and what's going on in our country. And I was walking my dog in the park, and I looked up in the sky, and I saw an airplane about 30,000 feet above in a blue sky, and there were the chemtrails. That goes on with, it doesn't matter who's president, right? And we know what they're doing with chemtrails. It doesn't even get talked about anymore because there's so much going on. And I sat there and I said to myself, nothing really changes. It's just the narrative that they want us to listen to that does. And so many people get caught up into it that the reason I love having you on is that we have to differentiate between true Christianity and the false ecumenical movement. And it seems to me that the only people, I've searched the internet, that are really trying to discern what's going on with Trump behind the scenes are the Bible-believing Christians who aren't buying for 1 minute what the ecumenical pastors in this ecumenical movement who have backed Trump are saying. And the reason is they're lumping together Catholicism, which is pagan, and Christianity, as well as not dealing with Jesuit infiltration into our ecumenical Protestant churches. We got about a minute and a half here before the break. Just your thoughts on that real quick, and we'll get into it again after the break, but go ahead.
Yes, it will be the true born-again Christians, the ones that are in the Bible, reading it, studying it, doing what Jesus said, and going out there and winning souls and telling people and warning them about what's going on. They're going to be the ones that are not going to be deceived, because we listen to the words of the Lord. We read the Bible, and we do what the Bible says to do, and we take heed to the warnings of the Lord that are there. Other people, the Protestants, where did the Protestant Reformation go? Well, I protest, Greg. I protest everything that the Vatican and Rome and the popes are doing. I will protest till the day I die. And our church feels the very same way, and that's why they put our pastor in prison.
Yeah, and that's a good lead-in. We only got about 20 seconds here, and let me go into the break. That's a good lead-in to what I want to talk about in the second half hour. And you're listening to Debra Ondrisek of the Alamo Ministry, who basically, for their Christian views, their biblical views, and they're really their protest against the Vatican, just like the Protestant Reformation did way back when. That's why this ministry was targeted, and we're going to get into that in the second half hour with Debra Ondrisek of the Alamo Ministry. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour. My guest is Debra Ondrisek of the Alamo Ministry. And we left off, Debra, we're talking about, how even Christians, I believe, now are being deceived. Trump, on the surface, seems to be, allowing Christians to have a voice again. He makes it a point to say that we are the forgotten people, but he lumps everything together: Catholicism, ecumenical Christianity, the Protestants who've lost their way. And we've talked many times on this show about infiltration of the Jesuits. In fact, Tony was one of the first people years ago to alert me of Father Alberto Rivera, a Jesuit priest who spoke at your ministry way back in the 80s regarding Jesuit infiltration into Protestant churches, basically to quelch and to stop any criticism of Rome. And that's not what true Protestantism, right? Explain that, what you were telling me at the break. I think people should hear it again. Go ahead.
Can you give me an exact reminder of what I was saying there, Greg?
Well, we were talking about protest. Remember?
Oh, okay.
And what true Protestantism really is, and what even reflect on what Alberto was saying at your ministry years ago regarding this. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, Protestant means really protest, and what the people were doing back in the 1500s, the early 1500s, was they were protesting. They had found out the Bible was being printed up in the language of the people, different peoples, and they were finding out all the vices of Rome and how they'd been duped, and all the indulgences, all the horrible things that the Catholic cult was requiring of these poor people that had no idea because they didn't speak Latin or because the Bible was chained up in the monasteries and nobody could read it. So when they did find out about it through Luther and many, many others, and when they started publishing the Bible, then they started protesting what was going on, the sale of indulgences and all the other evils that were going on in the Roman Church, and they were protesting also how the Roman Church was over the kings and queens of the world. It ruled everything, and so because of their protesting, the Catholic institution started at the Jesuit organization. And that happened in, I think, 1540. And that was the militaristic arm of the Vatican, the Catholic cult, to try to quench or do away with, to completely get rid of what they called heretics, which were the reformers. People were finding out about the Bible, and whether they were completely on sound doctrine, they were just new into this Bible, but they knew that Rome was wrong. And they were murdering these people. They were burning them at the stake and killing them any way they could, hunting them down like animals and imprisoning them and murdering them. And they say that there were millions murdered during that Reformation. I mean, we talk about the murders and the different wars and everything, and this was just unbelievable. But what I want to say is that the thing that the Jesuits were doing to destroy the Protestant Reformation, this is still going on today. It was not just back, 500 years ago, back in 1540 or the 1500s and into the 1600s. No, it didn't end. It's still going on, and they're still persecuting and have done for years, for millennia, for centuries. They've been persecuting all these different people that were true born-again Christians that had really found salvation through the blood of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so it still goes on today, and the Lord doesn't leave his people ignorant of what's going on. And we've got the Bible, and we know what's going to happen, and we know what it says in the book of Revelation and many other places in the Bible. And the Lord even gave Daniel way back in the days when he was in the Babylonian captivity. The Lord gave him different dreams and godly dreams, and about how the end time and about the different kingdoms that would happen up until the very final kingdom, which was just a kingdom that was just nobody could make war with this beast. Who can make war with the beast? Who can make war with this? The Lord calls it the beast. It's a world encompassing kingdom that wants everything and everybody to come under its control, and it's the fourth kingdom that Daniel speaks of, and that's what it is right now. And it's the Vatican. And the deadly wound that the Vatican had was when the reformists it revealed what was going on, and there was this great Protestant Reformation. All these people were getting saved, and the Bible was printed up, and it was printed in all different languages, and people were free from the shackles of Roman Vaticanism. And then you come to the 20th century, and you have where the Lateran Treaty, which was, I think, in 1929, established the Vatican as a sovereign state, and you've got the Pope in there, and
Rome and the Catholic Church was regaining its power.
Yes, and you have that right, and up until this day, they've regained their power, so that deadly wound was healed, and the Protestants quit protesting, and so you have this ecumenical movement and trying to get everybody, the Pope trying to get everybody under the same umbrella. But then, like you were talking about this Bannon and was it Cardinal Burke, and Cardinal Burke wants to bring in the old Catholic Church. Well, the old Catholic Church isn't right either. Mm-hmm. They're wrong because they don't have Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. But they have a lot of doctrine, a lot of rites, a lot of false saints and so on and so forth, and Mary worship, and which is really Isis worship, and they have all the old things, the Egyptian and Babylonian gods that were incorporated into this religious machine. But you see all this going on right now, but it's really, the Vatican is the one world government, and it's got a mouth, and that's the media. And the media, just as I was saying before, it just buys people. It offers them fame, and the same thing they offered to Jesus Christ that Christ rejected in his temptation. But they offer it to these people, and they don't, and they want it. They want the fame. They want the money, and they're used. These people are used. So you have all these Pied Pipers in Hollywood. They make all these movies and everything.
While you're saying that, I just wanted to. I was looking at Tony's article that he wrote. It's called My Commutation, and he wrote an article that explains really why your church was persecuted. And he says, regarding the media, he said, another thing that caused my incarceration was the frenzy of the newspapers and other media around Arkansas. The media intensified its smear campaign that they conducted for around 50 years against me while I was in jail before the trial. So they had convicted him in the court of public opinion in concert with the FBI and the BATF, who raided your ministry in 2008. I just wanted to bring that up. But go ahead. You were saying?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was there for that, and I know how the media was. I know what they did. They never let us get our side of the story. It was always the line that they were fed that was going to be in the Arkansas Dem-Gazette and also in the Texarkana Gazette newspaper, for sure. And that was when they had, after they had kidnapped our children, to try to get them to turn on our pastor and, to use them in court. They found some people that they could use to bring a false lawsuit against our pastor, which they did. They railroaded him into prison. But yeah, the mouth of the media is the mouth of the Vatican, is the media. They control it. And if you go back to, you can go back with Ted Turner, you can go to Rupert Murdoch, you'll find out that going back and researching their histories that they're going to be under the control one way or the other of the Vatican. And Rupert Murdoch himself is a Knight of Malta and of the Order of St. Gregory. They are sworn, their allegiance is sworn to the Pope. The Pope isn't some religious leader. He's a militant. He's under the guise of being a religious leader, but he commands the military of the Vatican. And what they do is, according to the Bible, the blood of all that are slain upon the earth are found in the Vatican. And these things are deep, but they're true. And the Lord tells us that in his word. And so if people don't read the Bible and they don't compare it to what's going on in the world today, then they're not ever going to know. And, yes, I was there for a couple of nights when brother Alberto Rivera, spoke at our ministry back in 1984. And he, of course, told his testimony of what had happened, how he had found the Lord and what was going on there in the Vatican, and how he had gotten out himself, and eventually they put this man to death. I mean, he to me was a true martyr. He was incredible, and of course they'll just say that this isn't true. They'll deny his testimony and everything. But I think this is one of the ways that our pastor even found out about all the evil stuff that was going on in the Vatican.
Yeah, and I remember when I first talked to Tony. He had mentioned that he had allowed Alberto to speak at your ministry way back in the 80s when this was not even discussed. Many people, even the people today that are aware of Vatican intrigue, had no idea. And he was a Jesuit high-level priest who was assigned to basically infiltrate Protestant churches so that this criticism, biblical criticism of the Vatican, was stopped, so that when you read the book of Revelations, the Antichrist institution was never pinpointed towards Rome. And I had the opportunity of interviewing his wife, Nuri Rivera, who basically laid it all out on the table, how she was even after his death, and she said without doubt he was poisoned for what he was doing in America. And this is what happened. She said they came to her afterwards and said, if you sign this piece of paper stating that Alberto Rivera was insane and was never a priest, then we'll take care of you in the tunes of millions of dollars for the rest of her life. She refused. Then they came to her and said, can you tell us where he's buried? And I said, why would they do that? And she said, I never told them. In fact, no one really knows, because they will go and dig up his bones and take him back to the Vatican, and they do these crazy satanic worshiping over this stuff. This is how bad it gets. Satan is unreal, correct? I mean, this is amazing.
Absolutely. I've read where they have actual churches that are made out of human bones. I mean, how gruesome, how horrible.
Yeah, I tell the story when I was in Italy. I went to the Capuchin monks in Sicily and happened to go into there. If you ever go there, it's the most horrifying thing. They have bones. I mean, they have a back room and a cellar. It's completely filled with bones and people, and it's an amazing, just sick. And I asked the old Capuchin monk, why do you do that? And they say, we worship the dead. Okay, that's unbiblical, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's what they do. They worship dead saints and dead bones and dead relics. And I came out of that. I know. I was a Catholic for quite a few years myself before I became a Christian. And I went to a Catholic school for 7 years. And I was confirmed and baptized in the church when I was 6, confirmed when I was 12 or 13. I don't remember. My confirmation name was Teresa, after St. Teresa, the Little Flower. And I had relatives that were nuns, and even I think a bishop on my stepmother's side. And I was just duped into the whole thing myself.
Yeah, I went through the same routine. So I find too that Catholics, when they really find or come out of the beast, they are the most vocal, because they've been deceived for so long, that they want to set the record straight for people that don't realize, when you're put through the rigors of Catholicism, like you and me were, and others. I think Bert Krantz of your ministry was a Catholic. He's going to come on tomorrow, by the way. And so come back to the show tomorrow and listen to Bert. And during that first half hour, I apologize. I had some background noise going on in the studio, so I apologize for that. It couldn't be helped. But anyway, your message in the first half hour will get out. But anyway, getting back to this idea of, the only people I see that really are willing to talk about the truth about the Vatican are people who have come out of the beast, true Christians, biblical Christians, not the ecumenical movement that absorbs most of what Christianity now is in America, including Catholicism, all lumped together. And I think it's, like you said, I believe it's the reason Tony was very vocal about it, and your ministry passed out millions of brochures trying to alert people of this. And I believe that's the reason that you guys have gone through this persecution that I've outlined on my show for the last, I don't know how many years now, trying to culminate here, see if we can get Tony out of prison. But anyway, you said earlier at the break, it's our responsibility, your ministry's responsibility, not to stop this. And tell us what you're doing now and why you feel obligated to let people know the truth about the Vatican, what the Protestant reformers were doing back then. Go ahead.
Well, what we're doing now is what we've been doing for years, really. We still have our different churches in various cities, and we have a service there every evening at 8 o'clock and 3 o'clock Sunday afternoons. We serve free meals afterwards. We still pass out many, many gospel pieces of literature all over the world. We send them over. We send gospel literature all over the world, to different parts of the world, different countries, different people that are eager to distribute, that have looked at our literature and they believe it and they are eager to distribute it to help their own country to be turned to the truth of the gospel. And many pastors and preachers do this. And we still take care of people if they have needs. We take care of them as well as we can with our finances. We feed and house people still. People can come to our ministry if they get saved and they want to move into the ministry and be taken care of by the ministry, and in turn go out and tell others about the Lord Jesus Christ. We still have that open door policy. We do feed and clothe people. We send out the literature, send out the Bibles, have that street ministry in New York and in Los Angeles and different cities in our country here, and we'll go to different rallies where we've gone to the presidential rallies, many of them, and even afterwards to let people know where there's large crowds of people, to tell them to pass out, distribute our gospel literature, so they too can. There's in the gospel literature, there's the sinner's prayers on the back of the literature, and it's always something that people can turn to and say the prayer and accept the Lord Jesus Christ. It has the plan of salvation there. So, and we have, of course, our website, and we've got television shows on the website. Our old television shows are still on YouTube, and there's many ways that people can contact us, and we talk to people through email and various ways. However, many ways that they can contact us to find out about the Lord or for prayer or whatever their problem is. We help people.
Right, and I want to give out your website. It's Alamo Ministries.com, and you can get a lot of information there. Also go to a website I started called FreeTonyAlamo.com, and you can read, I put a short article up there explaining this persecution of your ministry that dates back over 40 years and culminated with this last raid in 2008 that, I mentioned. I followed this trial as well as have looked at it from every side, and I've never seen something so blatant of a kangaroo court where this man was framed. And we've gone over that in depth in many of my shows. And I know you were there, and I know it shocked you, but just give us a little flavor. We only got about 5-6 minutes here of what was going on in that courtroom.
Well, they had the press were allowed to be in there, and the press was totally against us. They had the FBI agent in charge of the raid and in charge of getting our pastor arrested and getting him jailed, and that was Randall Harris, and he was there coaching the witnesses, the false witnesses that were on the stand. He sat in front of them, not far from them, and would shake his head yes or no if they looked to him for an answer to different questions. And it was just a really terrible time. There were so many things that they did to us that really were illegal. First of all, it was illegal to take our children. There was no reason, there was no abuse whatsoever. They kidnapped our children and tried to break up our church in any way they could to get everybody to disperse. As a matter of fact, one day we had 30 witnesses there for Pastor Tony, and after our 6 girls had been taken, and everybody was in the courtroom, and while we were there, they got an order where they could take all of the rest of the ministry's children, and they locked us in the courtroom and would not let us out until they got their people out, their agents out, to round up the other children. That's exactly what happened, and that's the way we were treated. We were treated not like U.S. citizens, but like enemies of the state or something like that, because our church and our pastor preaches the Bible. And of course the Bible is an offense to the unsaved. It says in his word. And we certainly had to feel the wrath of Satan and the world government for this. We're not world government people. We are anti-globalist. We are anti-one world church, one world government. Totally against
exactly.
it.
I mean, I've said many times you did not preach insurrection. You did not want to overthrow the government. Basically, you were persecuted for telling the biblical account as the Protestant reformers did back during the Protestant Reformation. And the same Jesuits came against them that are coming against you as we speak now. In this country, that's why I believe many of these churches never came to your rescue, because they realized that if they speak against the Vatican, the same thing will happen to them. And that's why you have these ministers now who are basically closet Catholics, closet Pope supporters, who are calling themselves Christians when you can't just be a 90% Christian, correct?
That's right, for sure. You have to be 100%. It's all or nothing with the Lord Jesus Christ, and I like it like that. I like the way God is, and I don't have any apologies for it, the way the Lord is or the way the Bible is.
Yeah, and when we look at the specifics of your case, it all boils down to that. And I know right now we only got about a minute and a half here. Again, go to alamoministries.com. And I also, please go to all my other shows. You can find some of them on their website. You can go to my website at arcticbeacon.com and get shows. I've had Debra on many times explaining aspects of this story that need to be told to the Christian community as well as all of America. And it's an incredible story showing that really the Jesuits have not changed. And isn't it interesting, Debra, in the last minute here, just your comments, how the Jesuits have control of everything now. Their order, now the Pope is a Jesuit. There's Jesuits are basically controlling our government if you start checking out their backgrounds, the people in charge. Amazing story. Your thoughts? We have about 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly it. People won't do the research, but if they did, they would probably be quite amazed to find out how many Jesuits are in the government and every aspect of our government, and also not just the government, but the media and everything. They're everywhere.
And I know I was criticized many times over the years, and some people would say that, oh, Greg, you find a Jesuit behind every rock. And I said, not only rocks, they're behind every tree, every bush, every place you want to go in this country. And if you don't believe me, just start checking out Georgetown University, the School of Foreign Service, where most of our diplomats come from, are all trained by the Jesuits. Debra, thanks so much for being on the show, and we'll have you on again. And good luck, and my prayers are with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay.
Thank you.
Come back on the Investigative Journal tomorrow. We'll have on Bert Krantz from the Alamo Ministry. See you tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.